Welcome to the last part in this trilogy of mini live tutorials, where I'm showing you how to build a drum rack containing an already processed drum break and all of your favourite samples, which you can load instantly into a session. In this movie, I'm going to show you how to add return tracks to the rack, so you can process all of the drums together using send effects. Let's take a look. As a little recap then, what I've done is to make a drum rack, which has instrument racks on 3 of its pads, each of which contains up to 128 different drum samples, which I can select using the macros on the rack. So I can play my drum break using a MIDI clip on the track, and then step through each of my samples by rotating the macros to change the drums in the break. Then I've got analog being triggered by another pad, which is just producing a bass tone for extra fatness at the bottom end, which I can turn on and off using the mute switch. And lastly, I've got an EQ on each of the drum's chains now, for controlling their spectral shape, with the EQ's effect being brought in and out by the 3 lower macros. So now I want to show you how you can apply some send effects to the rack. This is done in the rack's chain list. Firstly, you can see we've got some switches in the bottom corner of the rack. The 2 lower ones set whether you view the sends and returns. So to activate returns, we just click on the R, after which we get a new section in the chain list for creating returns. So we can use the top section for creating more chains, or drag effects into the bottom section for making return tracks. First then, I want to have a delay for creating some more width, so I'll drag simple delay to that section. Now we can edit the effect settings, either by clicking on it in the rack, or up on the mixer once again. As you can see, we've now got a new track within our drum rack's unfolded tracks here. Remember though, that this track only receives a signal when you send something to it, which I can do using the send sliders on the tracks, which have now appeared. So if I want to send my hat to the effect now, I just turn up its send amount, which I'll set to max for now. And I'll set the delay to 100% wet, as this is a send effect, and we don't want any more of the dry signal on there. Now let's set up the delay. What I want is a slightly delayed signal on the left and right side, so I'm going to unsync both channels, after which you can see we get a delay of 100 milliseconds on the left and right. Then I'm just going to bring these down. If you want to set them both to the same, then you can do that using the link switch. But if you want the extra width, then you can set a slightly different amount in each channel. I normally keep things below around 30 milliseconds, so the delay isn't noticeable and you just get the extra width and change in character. And I can then bring the send level down if I want to reduce the amount of effect on the hat, as well as bring the clap send level up to introduce some of the effect to that drum as well. And then if I bring the effect return in and out, you'll hear the extra widening we get. Obviously you need to be listening in stereo to hear the effect from this one. When creating a stereo effect like this, it's sometimes a good idea to check things out in mono, just to make sure you don't get too much phase cancellation, which you can sometimes get when using effects like this when your track's played out on a particular speaker setup. You can do this in live by adding the mono utility preset to the drum rack or master track. Next effect I'm going to add is a compressor. What I'm going to do is add some parallel compression. So I'm going to drag the effect to the return track area of the rack, so it's a send effect rather than an insert. It's more common to add a compressor as an insert, but using it as a send instead can be good if you want to add some compressed sound, whilst keeping the punchy uncompressed sound as well. So to send our drums to the compressor now, I'll just turn up all their send levels. Set to max like this will mean that the levels sent to the compressor are the same as those on the chains tracks themselves. So now I'm going to solo the compressor track and select it so I can set up the compressor in the device chain below. Now I can turn down that track and play the clip without the parallel compression, and you can hear how introducing some of it into the mix fills out the drums whilst maintaining their punchiness. And I can go through adding other effects returns as I like. I've got a reverb in there as well now, which I can use to add more depth to my snare perhaps. And I've mapped the levels of the delay and compressor return tracks to the macros on the end here, so I can bring them in and out with those controls. Now my rack's done, I can just click on the save switch to store it as a preset into my library. Or even better, I can drag the whole MIDI track from Live into my browser, which will save any MIDI clips on the track into the library as well. This means that at any time I want to use it in a session, I just drag the track out and everything will be ready to go. So that's the end of these mini tutorials. Hopefully that's given you some ideas about how to create a similar drum rack of your own for adding an instant fat drum break to your sessions. If you want to learn more about live and music production, feel free to check out my online school at live-courses.com. Bye for now.